Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how you can build a custom AI chatbot for your ZenDesk support portal, just like this one that we have on our support portal, using the new official n8n InfraNodus GraphRAG node that is available now inside your n8n AI automation tool. And I'm going to demonstrate how it works step by step so you can build it yourself, and then show you how we use InfraNodus itself under the hood to generate high quality responses. In fact, they're so good that the official ZenDesk chatbot that we also have on the InfraNodus page here, it's actually not as good. So even the chatbot that ZenDesk themselves created doesn't answer the questions as well as this chatbot that uses ZenDesk itself, but also uses the underlying InfraNodus graph to generate the responses. So I'm going to show you how it works first, just run through this workflow so you understand its structure, and then I'm going to show you how you can set it up yourself. So stay tuned if you want to learn how it works. So first of all, in order to add this workflow into your n8n, you just go into new workflow in n8n, and then you click on these three dots at the top, and then you click import from file, and then you import the file with the workflow inside here. So you'll have exactly the same setup as you see right now on the screen. Let me talk you through each node that you have here. So it starts with the webhook. Webhook is something that will receive a message from the chatbot that will be embedded using the tool that we developed that's called n8n chat widget. You can also use the native n8n chat node here. You can add it here if you click plus, chat trigger. Then the workflow is going to be a bit different because you will start with the chat node, and you will also need to add another one here that's called respond to chat and set it up correctly. But we like to use webhook because this chat widget that we have here is much more customizable, and you also can save the history of your messages with the client. So it's pretty good if you want to track whether it works well or not. So you start with this webhook. The webhook receives a message from this chatbot that you have here. Once the message is received, then you go to the next node, which is the native n8n support agent or AI agent node, and that node orchestrates interaction between ZenDesk search and the InfraNodus graph. So it's kind of like an orchestrating node. Inside this node, we have a custom prompt that you will also have available inside this workflow that says that first, when you receive the query from the user, you should consult the InfraNodus node here that retrieves the answer from the knowledge base. And this knowledge base is really interesting because it's an ontology graph that I created for InfraNodus, the tool that I'm working on, that explains how it works through 48 different statements that use wiki links to denote the nodes and the co-occurrences as the connection. So you have this really nice representation of the main functionalities of the tool. And so when the model asks something to this node, it doesn't just use the standard RAG or retrieval augmented generation that's based on vector search, because that wouldn't be precise enough, especially for general queries or too specific queries. But rather, the model always has an understanding of the general context, so it always knows what are the main concepts inside this graph, what are the main topics. And then when the user asks something about modularity, for instance, which is a measure that we use to identify diversity of text, it's going to zoom in here, and it's going to choose the parts of the graph that relate to modularity. So it will know all the relationships of modularity, what else it's related to, what it's used for, and so on. And then it also has the statements here on the right that explain it in much more detail. And on top of that, it uses similarity search to extract other relevant data. And so then it feeds it back to the support agent. Then the support agent reformulates user's query that it received from the chat, and then sends it to the ZenDesk search HTTP node here that you have available here. And so the query is usually more defined than the original one, and that means that you get better search results from ZenDesk. Then the search results arrive back to the AI agent node, and then they get sent to the chat back to the user. So just to show you how this whole thing works, let me demonstrate here. You need to go to the webhook here, and then you copy the test URL button. For this, you don't need to activate anything. Make sure that you have this using respond to webhook node so you get the actual response. And then you need to click execute workflow, because then this workflow will be waiting for the trigger event to arrive to the webhook URL, okay? Because you need it to get started with something. So now it's waiting for the message. And you copied already this link here. that you can also copy here if you double click on webhook. Then you go to the n8n chatwidget.com. I will provide the link under the video or above. And once you load this page here, n8n chat widget, you simply copy this webhook link here. It's going to look something like your n8n instance webhook test, and then you click update widget and try. Okay, and then it's going to be able to interact with this workflow. And let me show you, because I already have it connected. You will need to do some more setup to make it work, but I just want to show you how it works here. So if I ask what is modularity, look what happens. Now this workflow is activated. The request goes to the AI agent module. Then it first asks the question to the knowledge base of InfraNodus. Then it retrieves the answer. Then it reformulates it and sends a query to ZenDesk search. And then once it gets the result from ZenDesk, it sends back the final response, like a summary of the response, back to the webhook, which you can then see in the message here. And what happens here is that it queries support portal for this. And you can actually see what it did if you click on executions. You have a log here. So this is the workflow that we just ran, 10th of December, 1905. And then I can click here to see what happened. So here it says, okay, what is modularity? This is the message we received here. Then support agent went to the AI module, sent the system prompt that we have along with the user message to InfraNodus. InfraNodus then, you see the actual prompt was just modularity. It decided to just use the word itself. InfraNodus retrieved everything that relates to modularity from this graph using the GraphRAG system along with the similar statements. This was the response that it got. So it actually provided the response, but also it provided information about the main topics in this graph, all the different contexts, all the relationships that are relevant. So yeah, it's pretty interesting because it really gets like the full context. And then what happened next is that the model then received this response, and then it sent back to ZenDesk a search query that was not just what is modularity, but modularity definition, explanation in InfraNodus. So you see it actually improved the search query to get the relevant results. Then it got the results from ZenDesk, and then it combined them with the results that it got from InfraNodus about the main topics, ideas, and functionalities. And then it created the final response, which we saw here delivered to the user. So this is how it works in a nutshell. Very simple, but very effective workflow. And as I say, much more efficient than the native ZenDesk AI module. You actually can compare it if you go to infranodus.com and you try this native ZenDesk module, which we still kept because it can hand off requests to the support agents, but we will soon replace it with ours when we add this functionality. And then you can go on Support Nodus Labs and then get the chat here and just try to ask a few questions and see that it performs pretty well. And the best thing about it is that you can connect it to any model you want also. So you can have something that's based in Europe, for instance, if it's important for you, or use your favorite model if it's not OpenAI, something else, you know. So really lots of flexibility here. And now that you know how it works, let me show you how you can set it up. So once you have this workflow here copied into your n8n, you need to actually add some settings here. So the main one is going to be this support agent where you define the system message. Well, that's actually not the main one, but it's an important one. So here you just need to replace everything that relates to InfraNodus with something else. So if it's your own product, then probably you need to write the name of your product just to give it a bit more context. But you don't need to change the structure of this message because, in fact, it's well structured enough to tell the model to basically first query the expert ontology from InfraNodus and only then to perform search on your ZenDesk support portal. Okay, so it explains the model that it has to do it in 2 different steps. Then you will have to connect it to your favorite AI model. You will need to probably authorize with it. So here I use my OpenAI account. I use GPT-4o1 Mini, and then the memory is connected, so that keeps track of the conversation. And then you have the InfraNodus node here, and that node can also be manually added if you type in InfraNodus here. AI advised, get a response from knowledge base. So that would be the node that you would add here. Now we already have it here, so I don't need to add it. I just double click it, and what you need to do is to give the name to the graph that you're going to use, and then tell the model that it will automatically define the prompt. Okay, so these are the stuff that you need to provide. Leave everything as it is, just give the name of the graph. And now the very important part, the brain of the system, is the InfraNodus graph that you're going to use. So you need to create an ontology for what's going to be actually queried here. And to do that, you go into InfraNodus and you go to the apps page, brainstorm, mind map, and then knowledge graph with wiki links. This is if you want to create it manually. And then you can start writing InfraNodus, and you use this wiki link syntax to make connections. Is a text analysis tool that can visualize information. For instance, you also can double click and then it's going to be selected. Once you save it, you see the entities that you tagged will be shown as nodes on the graph, and the co-occurrence is the connection. So then as you start building more and more stuff, you can add more stuff here. You can say InfraNodus also has an MCP server and works in cloud. And as you can see, we have the new connection added here. So you can manually build the ontology yourself. This is what I did actually for this graph that I showed you before with InfraNodus. But if you don't have time for it, you can also create an automatic ontology. For that, you go to brainstorm and then generate ontology graph, and you just write for which topic you want it to be generated. So you can write InfraNodus text analysis tool. Okay, and then if it knows the topic, then it's going to generate some initial ontology, which you can then edit, modify, and use in your workflows. There is another way of doing it also. Now it takes a bit of time because it has to generate all the statements. You can also use actually our ontology creation skill inside Claude. I will link to our skills also above or in the description to this video. And here you actually can just ask it to generate ontology, and then it uses this skill that we created that you can also use to generate this ontology. You see it uses the syntax already because it knows it, and then you can simply tell it, save it into a new graph in InfraNodus, the ontology, and then it's going to save it into the graph. So you can also do it this way, and you can probably edit also this auto-generated part to just modify it a little bit to how you like. So you have this other way of doing it. You see it saves it as InfraNodus ontology, and it's going to save it into a new graph. It's going to copy all this text, and once it's done, I can, okay, so let's see, InfraNodus ontology. This is the graph that Claude created, and this is much better. I like it more because you see it's more interconnected. So you can play around with a few automated ones and just use the one that you like and create an ontology this way. And finally, you can also upload some files actually and ask InfraNodus to generate ontology from them. So for example, if you have some research papers like I have here, I have research papers on social dynamics and also on social isolation. So I can click here and then I can choose that it only processes the entities and then it creates the graph from this. So you see there's like many different ways to create these ontologies. In the end, you will have this graph, and then you add the name of this graph, which you can copy and paste here. So you simply copy the name of the graph at the top here, and then you paste it into your node here, like that. And then it's going to be the graph that is used. And when you make the query, then it's going to work with this particular graph. And the last thing that you need to do here is just to set up the connection with ZenDesk. And for ZenDesk, you need to use the request that we have here saved in the workflow. Basically, it goes to the help center, performs search, uses the API connection that you need to create also inside n8n, which you can use for later stuff also. And then the query is defined automatically by the model. So the model decides, and then we have 5 results per page. So 5 different articles are retrieved. And then once you have this set up, you're ready to go. If you want to then make it publicly available and deployed, all you need to do is to make that webhook production URL. So you use production URL, you go to n8n chat, and then we recommend that you actually create an account so you can control how it looks like. And then you go to the editor, and then you add this webhook here. So you see this is a production webhook already. And when you have that, you can in fact then get the embed code here and put it on your support portal like we did here, and then ask any question to this tool and get the answers. And by the way, it can be both embedded, it can also be inline like that, or it can be accessible via a link. So you have many different options to access this chatbot. And once you have it activated, you should make sure to save it and then put it to the active mode. So that's very important. Make it active and saved. And then everything works fine. And then you can start working with this workflow. So I hope you find this demonstration useful. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or feedback. I'll be happy to help. And please leave your questions and comments under this video. I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.